What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So a little while back we decided to do a 6-liter swap on Dad's 2012 Silverado. While we were in there, we threw a Brian Tooley Racing camshaft, valve spring, and lifter package at it, and also a set of long tube headers. Well, when we put this truck together, we threw a temporary exhaust on it just to get this thing quieted down a little bit and running around. But we have picked up a new Magnaflow muffler for it that is a 3.5-inch inlet and dual 3-inch outlet. So we're going to be building a fresh exhaust from this thing from the headers back using our new muffler. Now we do still have a slight header leak on the driver's side. Not sure if we're going to get to that today, but we're definitely going to get the exhaust built and see how this thing sounds. So let's get through the intro and jump right into today's video. Now that we've gotten through the intro, let's get this thing fired up. We'll move the GTO off the lift and get this thing backed on. Alright, so now that we've got this thing up on the quick lift, it's going to make it much easier for us to get around underneath it and mock this stuff up. So let's go ahead and take a look at this muffler that we're going to be using real quick. I want you guys to check it out. It's a pretty nice piece. We decided to go with the Magnaflow. So this is a Magnaflow 12595. We've got the part number right there for you guys, and then the dimensions are right there. I'll link it in the description like I always do. But it's a nice stainless steel construction muffler, and as you guys can see, it's 3.5-inch inlet and dual 3-inch outlets, because we have long tube headers on here that come down to a 3.5-inch Y. So we're hoping to go right into this and then run duals out the back. We're going to try to go up over the axle and then out kind of in stock location, but one on each side. I want you guys to take a look inside this muffler real quick though. It's a pretty cool design. You can see it decently on camera here, but it's basically a double X. So you guys can see it's a perforated core for the majority of it, and then it's got the solid little centers for it to create the X. And we have an X muffler from Magnaflow on our GTO right over here, and it quieted it down a whole bunch, and it actually still sounds really good when you get on it. So we're hoping for the same results from this one here. So let's get under the truck, we'll take a look at what we've got, and then we can start coming up with a game plan on how we want to get this thing installed. So we're finally ready to start working on this thing. Where we're going to start is just getting all the old stuff off of here. So we're going to go ahead and undo this band clamp and this one, get this whole section pulled out so that we can start mocking up our 3.5-inch piece of pipe, figure out where we want the muffler, and then we can work back from there. And now we can start getting the hangers off and pulling this whole section out. Perfect. All right, now we got the exhaust dropped down. We can go ahead and try to snake this thing out of here and start working on getting our muffler mounted. It's gonna be heavy as soon as it drops. So now that we've got all that stock exhaust out of here and out of our way, I went ahead and grabbed the new muffler. And we've got this little pan I made for our jack that we've got it sitting on, and we're just trying to get this thing roughly in place where we want it, because we need to get a measurement from here to the header Y and see how long of a piece we're going to need there, so that we can start getting that made and then build off of this back. We're also obviously going to have to make some hangers, and I think we're going to order a flex section to either put in today or as soon as it comes in. But for now, we're just going to go straight with the 3.5-inch pipe to this and then get it mounted up and start running it back. So we've got our tape measure here, and we want roughly 33 inches. So we're going to go over to the bandsaw, cut ourselves a section, and get it thrown up in here. Got it thrown up in the bandsaw. We're going to go ahead and cut ourselves a piece, and we can start mocking everything up and getting it tacked together. so we were waiting on a few parts to show up and they just came in. So we've got our nice flex section that we're going to be putting up in front of the muffler just to make this thing so it's a little less rigid. And then of course we've got some ievilenergy 3-inch V-bands. We're going to be using those at the back for the tailpipes so that you can take the middle section out by itself and then also the tailpipes off if we need to get in there to do any type of maintenance or work on this thing in the future. Now if you guys need any fuel system parts, mufflers, or exhaust parts, make sure to go check out ievilenergy. They've been a huge help and support to the channel, and we have a discount code in the description of every video with a link to their site, so make sure to go and check them guys out. But let's get back under the truck, get our flex piece welded in, then we can start working on some tailpipes for this thing. So here's the piece that's going to go onto the header. Here's our new flex section that we're putting on, and then here is the little extension piece that goes into our Magnaflow muffler. So now we've got a nice little flex section in there. We can get it under the truck and mocked up and tack it in place. So as you guys see, we got the muffler up in place about where we're gonna have it. So we're trying to come up with some hanger options, and I had these in the drawer from another project, and I think these are gonna work great for what we're trying to do. I like this option because it's a smaller piece of rubber, so we won't have as much deflection. It'll still isolate any vibrations, but it's gonna keep it from letting that really heavy muffler hang and sag, and over time getting lower and lower and creating other issues. So I think this is what we're gonna go with. We have a whole bunch of them, so we're gonna get under the truck, start getting these figured out and where we want them so that we can get the muffler in place and get the jack out of there. All right, so we found a good spot for the muffler, and I already drilled a little pilot hole, but we're gonna drill right through this and nut and bolt the hanger to it. I didn't want to weld the hanger to the frame because then if we ever need to take this thing off for whatever reason, this is just gonna be easier. We'll just nut and bolt it. So I'm gonna finish drilling this, and then we can get that thing mocked up in here and weld it to the muffler. All right, so we've got the muffler in place. We've got those hangers mocked up. As you guys can see, we got that one bolted to the cross member there, and I'm just gonna tack it to the muffler itself. And then up here in the front, we're gonna be using a hanger that was originally here, this rubber one that's right here. And then we built one to go off of that on a nice little angle that'll come up under the pipe coming out of the muffler. So I'll grab that real quick once it cools down, and I'll show you guys what we're working with. So we ended up putting a new rubber hanger on there, and then we made this one, bent it to what we needed, and we're just gonna go ahead and get that tacked in place just like so. And then we've got one for the rear as well, and this muffler should be about ready to hang on its own. All right guys, so we got that thing tacked up there. Now we can carefully lower the jack and see what happens here.
It didn't move.
Didn't even budge.
That's what you want.
So we've got the muffler up where it needs to be. Seems pretty rigid. We just tacked everything. The only thing left to do in the front is to throw the final band clamp on, but we're gonna wait to do that until we are ready for final assembly. So let's go ahead and start working on a tail section. Now that we've got the muffler in place where we want it to be, we're gonna go ahead and cut a section out of our 10-foot piece here. We're gonna go with 46.5 inches, and hopefully that'll get us to the axle. Then we have a scrap U-bend laying around from some stuff I got at a swap meet. So we've got 2 of those, so we're gonna cut a piece. Hopefully we can go to those, and then we'll just mirror the other side if this works out and start building back from there. So now we're gonna go ahead and cut another piece to mirror that first one, and then we can run those 2 back, go to our little horseshoes, and then start working on tailpipes. Now we can start building from here back. Sorry if the camera lens looks weird to you guys. I have you on a super view mode because I can't tell what you can see right now. So got this piece that we made last night. It can go up kind of like so. And then we've got this straight piece right here. Goes right up next to it. And now that gets us to the rear end pretty close. So we're gonna have to go from there up and over the rear axle. So we've got those little horseshoe pieces from another exhaust kit that we had laying around. And we're gonna use our 2 V-bands right here. So we're gonna have 2 V-bands here, so this whole middle section will come out. And then the tail sections will be separate. So I'm gonna grab the V-bands, we can get those mocked up, and then start checking length and everything that we're gonna need to do the little horseshoes up over the axle. So these are the little horseshoes that we're gonna be using to go up over the axle. We have our V-band mocked up on here. I'm just gonna go ahead and get that tacked on in a couple spots. Then we can bring it under the truck and test fit everything before we start tacking the rest of the exhaust in place. All right, so we've got these 2 long straight sections coming off of the muffler. I set my V-bands on there. They're not tacked yet. They're just sitting on there. Now we can put our horseshoe pieces in and test fit those and then start tacking everything up to here.
Oh, we got plenty of room. They're alright like that.
Okay, grab the other one.
You can push this one over this way more.
So we're good. All right, these look like they're gonna fit fine, so we're gonna go ahead and tack these 2 straight pieces that go into the muffler. So as you guys seen, we got some of this section tacked in place. Now we're gonna go ahead, we got the V-bands tacked on too. We're gonna test our horseshoe over the axle pieces, see where they come out, and then hopefully we can start building off from there if everything looks good. So as you guys seen, we got everything to after the axle ran. Now we're just trying to figure out our tailpipe situation. So as you guys can see, all this exhaust tubing that we had was from a G-body that I got at the swap meet. I think I already said that, but we're trying to use as much of it as we can so we don't have to do a bunch of pie cuts and make bends and everything else. So we want it to come out right about here like it would factory, but we're going to do the one on each side obviously, and then we'll worry about making the tip nice and pretty after. Right now we just need to get it lined up. So I think what we're going to do first is that section that goes up over the axle, Dad just made a mark on it, and we're going to take it off and try to cut it somewhere right about up in there, because that might just put us pretty close to where we want to be. So that's where we're going to start for now. Get a section of that cut out, we'll put it back up there and test fit, and then just start building from there. If we have to do pie cuts, we can, but we're trying to avoid it for now. So let's go ahead, get that thing pulled off, cut, and see if we can get everything fit up. So we got this thing mocked up in the bandsaw here. We're going to go ahead and try to cut this section out. So we test fit this piece under the truck, and we want to take a little bit more height out of it so we can use some pie cuts here. Obviously we can't jig this up in the bandsaw like this, so I'm just going to cut it with our die grinder, get this section cut off, and then we have a few pie cuts that we can use to try to get the angle that we need. So let's go ahead and get this thing cut. Not too bad. All right, let's try that. So after we cut that section off, we went ahead and grabbed a pie cut that I already had made, and we fit it up under there, and it seems to be pretty good. So we marked it, and I'm just gonna go ahead and tack it for now so that it's a little easier to work with, and then we can build back from there, and if we need to, we can always cut it off or add more. So let's go ahead and get this thing tacked in place and test fit this thing. All right, we got that tacked. Now we can go ahead and test fit this thing and then work on the next section. Right there. All right, now we're close. Now it's gotta go back up. All right guys, so we've got this thing just about in place where we want it. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put a couple tacks up here. Then we'll step back, look at it, make sure it's how we want it, and then we can go ahead, and this section's just about done. We can start working on the other side. So let's get this thing tacked in place. Now that we got the passenger side done, we're working on the driver's side, so we're gonna go ahead and do something similar over here. I'm going to take right about 2 inches off of this pipe that goes up over the axle, and then we can build from here out to a tailpipe. So as you guys can see, we're working on mocking up the tail section. I forgot to hit record, but we got some of the pie cuts that we're going to be using tacked up in here, and it worked out pretty good. It's putting the tail section about where we need it. We're trying to get it right about there, and then we're going to use pie cuts to get it to the exact spot and angle that we want our actual tip to show. So we're going to go ahead and get this tacked in place now, and then we can start working on the tip itself. So as you guys seen, we went ahead and pulled the exhaust off the truck. The reason I did this is because I want to go through and weld up all of these joints so that if we have any movement, we can adjust it with the tip placement and get this thing sitting right where we want it. So I'm going to start off with the big center section that we have right here. I'm going to get that all finished welded up. Then we will grab the tailpipes here, get those welded up, and then we can place it back on the truck and start final fitment for the tips themselves. So let's get set up. We'll get this stuff welded out and throw them back on the truck. Alright guys, so it is the next day, and we've got pretty much all of the piping finished up except for that final driver's side tip. Like I said, we wanted to leave that until we get everything solid welded, so if anything shifted on us. But I wanted to give you a quick look at it. I'll apologize for any background noise today. They are power washing next door, and we got just a little bit of wind. But this exhaust is coming out really good, and Dad's gonna go ahead and start getting some paint on this stuff. I've got to edit today, so we're gonna leave a camera with him and see if he can't get some of it. But let's take a look at what we've got so far. This thing's coming out really good. So as you guys can see, we've got our tailpipes over here. This is from the axle back basically, and everything worked out really good. We got our V-bands on there. The welds aren't the best I've ever done, but they're definitely not the worst I've ever done. They came out pretty decent, so I'm pretty happy with these things. Coming out pretty decent for just a quick MIG weld. We aren't using stainless steel on much of this just because it's not a show truck, it's a daily driver. So we're just using what we had, and we're gonna go ahead and hit this stuff with some paint. Same paint that we've been using for quite some time now. But as you guys can see, this section came out really good. Obviously our Magnaflow muffler is stainless steel, so we're not gonna have to paint that. And then up here from our flex bellow forward is also stainless steel, but I didn't feel like switching over to stainless wire just for this small section, so we are going to paint it just to try to protect the welds, because the welds will rust. But like I said, the welds on this thing actually came out pretty decent this time. Dad cleaned them up a little bit just to help the paint stick some more, and this flex bellow seems like it's going to work out pretty good for us. I'll link all this stuff in the description, but we'll leave him with a camera and we will get to painting this thing. I'm going to go upstairs and start editing for you guys, and we'll come check this thing out once it's painted and we can start working on that final tip.
Okay guys, I got it all taped up. Dad's speaking, and I'm getting ready to painting it, and let's see what happened. Let's start here. All right, we'll let that dry a little bit, and then we'll start another coat.
So as you guys seen, Dad got this thing all painted up, and it came out really good. The muffler is shining now that we've got the flat black on the rest of it. So this thing is pretty much finished up and ready to go back on the truck, and that's exactly what we're going to do right now. We're going to get this midsection thrown up and in there. I think we can even throw a clamp on it and put all the hangers on, and this one should be good to go. All we'll have left to do is finish up the tailpipe section. So we've been working on this final tailpipe, this tip right here, and what we came up with is we need a slight angle cut here, but a pie cut's too big. So we're going to cut a section that just has one side of a pie on it, so that 9 degrees, and it should put us out right about where we need. So we've got our length of 3-inch pipe here. We've got the bandsaw set back up to cut straight, and we made pie cuts with this, so there's already an angle on this end, which is going to work out great for us. So we're just going to cut it to the length we need. In our case, it's right around 13 inches, and we'll get this thing cut, then we can mock it up on the truck and hopefully get this thing welded up. so we're gonna get this final piece, the driver's side tip, up in place. I'm gonna get it tacked up. We gotta get a hanger on it, and then we can pull this stuff off, finish weld it, paint it, and this thing's gonna be good to go. So let's get this thing welded up and see what it looks like. We should be tacked up. Let's step back and see what it looks like. All right, now that we got this thing all welded up, I'm gonna go ahead and start cleaning up the pipe so it's good to go for paint. As you guys can see, we got both of them hanging up. That one's obviously painted. This one over here is ready for paint. So I'm gonna shake up a can, we'll get a couple coats on this, and then we're finally ready to throw this on and do a sound test. As you guys seen, we went ahead and threw a couple coats of paint on our tail section here and the tips, and it came out really good. Once again, I really like this Rust-Oleum high heat 2000 degree paint. It works extremely well for the exhaust systems, and it looks pretty good as well. It's a nice flat black finish, and what I really like about it is that it doesn't seem to care too much about how well you prep the surface. It stuck to this really well, and we just scuffed off the rust and went ahead and sprayed it. So once again, super happy with that paint. But now that these things are painted and dry, we can throw them on the truck and finally fire this thing up to see what it sounds like. I'm super excited to see what it's gonna sound like with a full exhaust and tailpipes with our new Magnaflow muffler. So let's get these things thrown on so we can fire it up. All right, guys, we got those tightened up. Our hangers are on and up. I think it's time to step back, take a look at it, fire this thing up and see how it sounds. Way better than it was. Still sounds good though, but it's definitely quieter, which is nice. Sounds good though. I don't hear any rattles yet. I'm gonna go ahead and roll this thing off the lift and we'll go take it for a ride. Sadly, we do still have that exhaust leak at the header. We're gonna address that hopefully this week and try to figure out what's going on there. It seems like it's coming from the driver's side right at the header, so we'll have to see what we find there. But for now, let's see what this muffler sounds like. Just try to ignore that header leak. It sounds annoying as hell, but bear with me. Definitely sounds better. So as you guys seen, we took this thing for a ride last night, and it sounds a million times better than it did with the other exhaust setup. It's much more tame, but still sounds really good when you jump on it. So we're really happy with how that turned out. But obviously when we were driving it, the header leak was driving us nuts, and we were gonna wait to address it at a later date, but we're finally tired of hearing it. So we're gonna get this thing off the lift, pull it up to the lift sideways, try to use it as like a scaffolding or a ramp, and see if we can't get this header pulled off there and see what's going on with it. So let's get it fired up, we'll get it turned around and get back to work. So as you guys can see, we got the truck turned around here and nosed up to the ramp. This is the first time we've tried doing this, and I think it's gonna work out pretty good for us. Gives us a nice base and scaffolding to work off of to reach into the engine bay a little bit easier. Now, we did already go ahead and undo the band clamp underneath and pop out the O2 sensor so that if we need to fully remove this header, we can. But like I said, as you guys can see, we got it pulled up to the ramp here. We got a step stool over here, so if we need to access it on the side, and then we've got our ramp right up here so we can walk right along it, and it should make life a little bit easier for us. So as you can see, we've got the header down in there. We did have new header bolts when we did the engine swap. Just in case you guys haven't been following along, we did a LY6 swap on this truck. We took the tired old 5.3 out, put the LY6 in, 823 heads, BTR cam, lifter, and spring package, and it runs really good. But ever since we did the swap, we've had a driver's side header leak. Now, I'm not sure if the Speed Engineering header flange isn't exactly straight or if it's something with the head. We didn't have them resurfaced. I just cleaned them up myself and slapped them on. But we tried a multi-layer steel header gasket, and it still blew out within the first 5-10 minutes. So then we tried one of the thicker style gaskets, did the same thing, lasted for about 5-10 minutes, and then the same exact spot spot blew out. So I'm pretty confident that there's just something not perfectly straight here. So what we're gonna try to do is go in there with some ultra copper and just use that as a gasket. So I'm curious to see if it works out for us. Hopefully it does. So let's get this thing pulled off. We'll get in there, clean it up, throw some ultra copper on it, and then hopefully we can fire this thing up and we have no more header leak. So right now we got the plug wires off and I'm just pulling the spark plugs themselves out. And then we'll go ahead and start undoing the header bolts and get this thing right out of here so we can see what's going on with it. So now that we've got the header separated from the head, I went ahead and cleaned it all up using some fine grit paper and also some acetone. And now we're gonna go ahead and try to mate this thing back up. I don't see anything obvious on why it's not flat, but since we've been through a couple gaskets already, I don't wanna just put another gasket in there because trying the same thing over and over is the definition of insanity. So we're gonna go ahead and try something a little bit different. I'm gonna try some of this ultra copper. I'm gonna put it on, I haven't decided if I'm gonna put it on the cylinder head itself or if I'm going to put it on the header. I think I'm going to go with the head, but we'll get a thick layer of this spread on there and then we'll try to get the header back up, do what the directions say, and then let it cure, fire it up, and see if our leak's gone. So I didn't bother showing it on camera much just because it was a pain to do it just by hand, let alone holding the camera. But we did go ahead and get the RTV spread in there. It's definitely ugly. Would I have choose to do it this way? No, but I didn't want to just keep throwing gaskets at it because it's not fun to do anyways. And we've already been through 2. So hopefully this fixes the issue. Not sure if you guys can see it because it's shiny on shiny, but we did decide to put some thick washers on the bolts as well to hopefully help the clamp surface. Not sure if that's how that works, but it should help spread out the load a little bit. So we're gonna go ahead, we let this stuff tack up for an hour after we got it like finger tight to where the RTV was oozing out. Now we're gonna tighten it up, we'll let it sit and fire it up in the morning and see if our leak's gone. So it is the next day. We wanted to follow the directions on the RTV to a T just to give this stuff the best chance at surviving as possible. So like I had mentioned before, we went ahead, put it on, got it finger tight, waited an hour, torqued it down, and then we waited 24 hours. So like I said, it's the next day and we're finally ready to fire this thing up. Now keep in mind it's going to be open header because we want to see if we have any obvious leak before we go through the trouble of putting it all back together. But if it sounds good, we'll start putting the exhaust back on this thing and hopefully get this thing wrapped up. All right, let's see what happens. With the open headers. So as you guys can see, we've got the truck turned around on the lift. I didn't bother showing too much of us getting the collector back together and the merge for the Y because this thing absolutely fought us all day long, but we finally got it all back together and it's time to fire this thing up and see A, if we got our exhaust leak fixed, and B, how this thing sounds. So hopefully the exhaust leak is taken care of because I am not pulling those things back off anytime soon. If it's still leaking, which hopefully it's not, it's just gonna have to live for a little while. But this thing was absolutely miserable to get back together. The exhaust that we made wasn't bad. Everything went together pretty decent, but everything at the Speed Engineering's Y merge was kind of a nightmare. It's a very tight fit. We had to drop the cross member, prop up the transmission, just a whole bunch of stuff that I had already shown when we installed these headers the first time during the 6-liter swap videos. So if you guys want to see those headers, they are nice. I would buy them again, but the fitment isn't perfect. So like I said, if you guys want to see that, you can go back and check it out on those videos. But we are finally ready to fire this thing up. So cross your fingers. Hopefully there's no more exhaust manifold or header leak. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit the key and see what this thing sounds like. Might still have a check engine light because we had the O2 sensor unplugged, but don't get too excited yet. Almost sounds like a little bit of something, but I can deal with that as long as it doesn't get worse.
Yeah. Well, I'd rather heat it up and get this fixed.
I think what I'm hearing is just the tinniness of the header a little bit. We'll take this thing for another quick ride and see what happens. Hopefully it stays this way, because if it does, this thing sounds absolutely perfect for what he wanted. It's gonna sound great when he jumps on it, but nice and tame at idle, and you don't have everybody looking at you when you're going through a work zone. So we'll go ahead, let it warm up a minute. We'll go take this thing for a ride and see how it does. Sounds really good with this muffler. I'm super happy with the Magnaflow so far. Tamed this thing down a whole lot. Before it sounded like a little race car driving around. Now it sounds good, and especially at idle you still hear the chop, which is what we wanted. But when you're driving it or trying to daily it like he does, it's a lot more tame. I think it sounds great. What do you think about it? You think it sounds pretty good?
I love it.
Heck yeah. That's what we wanted. Nice and dailyable for him. But like I said, we really didn't want to lose the chop. So we'll get a GoPro slapped on the back of this thing. We're going to drive it around a little more, make sure that RTV is fully cured. It probably already is. But drive it around a little bit. Then later we'll get a GoPro slapped on it for you guys and try to get some sound clips. Let's take this thing for another quick ride and see what it really sounds like. This thing sounds so much better, especially without that header leak anymore. It sounds like a whole new truck. This thing is sounding so good with this new muffler. I couldn't be happier with it. Let's head on back to the house, hear it chop a little bit more, and then we'll head back. So there you have it, guys. We took this thing out for a ride and it is sounding so much better than it did before. I couldn't be happier with it. You guys heard it on those few little pulls we did. This thing is sounding perfect. It's exactly what he wanted, and that's what we were going for. It's much more tame. He can daily drive this thing and it sounds perfect, but when you jump on it, it gets nice and loud. So I couldn't be happier with how this thing turned out. And to top it all off, we got rid of that dreaded header leak. That thing had been plaguing us ever since we did the 6-liter swap. So all in all, I am super happy with how this thing turned out. Make sure to let me know down in the comments below what you guys liked best. Did you like it when it was open headers, the single exhaust, or our new dual setup? Personally, I'm gonna be picking this dual setup all day long. So as always, I appreciate you for checking out the channel. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, and check us out on all of our other social media platforms, Facebook, TikTok, and Bought to Build Official on Instagram. And we will catch you on the next one.
Oh.